morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. It is with great pleasure to be opening the closing events of the COP27 Virtual Ocean Pavilion. My name is Elisa Morgera. I'm Professor of Global Environmental Law at the Strathclyde University in Glasgow, UK, and I'm the Director of the One Ocean Hub, a collaborative research endeavor of over 20 institutions in the UK, Ghana, Namibia, South Africa, as well as the 2 regional universities in the Caribbean and in the South Pacific, as well as many UN partners and other civil society and expert partners trying to advance inclusive and sustainable ocean governance through research for sustainable development. It is a great pleasure today to moderate a discussion about collaborative and cooperative approaches that are being used to progress discussions on the ocean in the climate, biodiversity, and sustainable development agendas, considering the outcomes and expectations from major ocean events in 2022. This discussion today will include high-level interventions, personal experiences, and messages across the age spectrum, and give examples of collaborative undertakings from the local to the global level. This session is also an opportunity for us to review the role and successes of this COP27 Virtual Ocean Pavilion in engaging and reaching out to those who are not able to attend in person COP27. And in fact, as part of a broader mission of democratizing the international debates on the ocean at the climate COP and promoting unity and inclusivity. As is customary, we are video recording this event so that other colleagues can benefit from our discussions in the future. And please note that we will have an open question and answer session after a discussion with our panel. And please use the question and answer box to share your questions with us. So without further ado, I'll give the floor to our first distinguished speaker, Dr. Aboud Jumbe, who's the Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Blue Economy and Fisheries in Tanzania, and who will be speaking and providing us perspective in promoting collaborative ocean climate action to achieve the Paris Agreement targets. Dr. Aboud, you have the floor.
Thank you, Professor. So on behalf of Tanzania, we are so excited to join this August session on raising unity in ocean climate action here at the COP27 Virtual Pavilion closing event. This is yet another great opportunity to address, engage, and collaborate on the process of implementation of ocean governance and climate action. Our economy here in Tanzania is severely climate sensitive, despite Tanzania's very low greenhouse gas emissions of about 0.2 CO2 equivalent per capita in 2019. Climate projections indicate a temperature increase range of 0.8 degrees Celsius to 1.8 degrees Celsius by 2040. The economic cost of addressing climate impacts in Tanzania could be equivalent to about 2% of GDP by the year 2030. An initial estimate of addressing current climate risks could cost us about $1 billion per year by 2030. Our budget to tackle climate change has gone up to 6.5% on mainland Tanzania and 8% on Zanzibar. Fisheries, tourism, seaweed farming, which contribute more than 1/3 of our GDP, have been hard hit by the impact of climate change. The required investment cost for implementing the nationally determined contribution commitments is $14 billion for a 5-year period from the year 2020. This is a tall order for us. We need to focus in integrating climate, biodiversity, and ocean for a long-term resilience. Now, since the UN Ocean Conference of 2017, Tanzania has continued to move on the path of integrating environment, climate adaptation, social inclusion, and the priorities for our communities. The Blue Economy Strategy of Zanzibar, for example, highlights the linkages between the marine degradation and coastal ecosystems, species, and climate change. Seaweed, as you know, reduce massive amounts of nitrogen and phosphates through eutrophication. It also absorbs CO2, releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. We understand that engaging global policymakers meeting here at the COP27 on matters of ocean governance and climate action, enhancing capacity building needs, promoting public and private sector networking and resilience, building science policy platforms, and the role of the academic and research institutions in ocean climate action are key areas that should be emphasized to support climate action process. Tanzania cannot do this alone, and therefore we support strengthening of the global ocean climate strategies through building the bonds between the regional seas programs, such as the Nairobi Convention in the Western Indian Ocean region, regional economic commissions such as East African Community and SADC, regional fisheries bodies such as the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, and the intergovernmental organizations such as the Indian Ocean Rim Association, together to reassess the current dynamics in ocean climate action, blue economy, and in addressing climate biodiversity, areas beyond national jurisdiction, and the Global Plastic Treaty. To engage sustainable solutions on ocean climate action, Tanzania needs climate-related innovation and technology development, binding it with commitment to sustainable ecosystem services and tackle the problem of climate and biodiversity loss, but also combating marine litter and microplastic pollution and embrace nature-based solutions. We need to work together under the existing instruments, such as the Paris Agreement, to continue to combat sea level rise, coastal erosion, ocean acidification, while preventing the loss of critical habitats, such as coral reefs, mangroves, and seagrass ecosystems. We should now redeem our commitment to conserve and protect our ocean, improve our science, knowledge, innovation for our common heritage, which is the ocean domain. We therefore must continue to work together to carry out our national, regional, and global ocean assessment obligations. We need to focus on increased engagement of a wider cross-section of relevant stakeholders and users, our coastal communities yearning for economic empowerment under the current wave of climate impacts. Tanzania, through its blue economy and ocean governance frameworks, will continue to support and engage ocean climate action, sustainable blue economy, and marine spatial planning, enhance MPA networks, incentivize sustainable tourism, fisheries, aquaculture, marine trade, services, renewable energy, and regional dialogue on ocean governance and climate action. The key here is to tackle our ocean climate action challenges. We believe that we can overcome these challenges and together implement the climate resilience goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aboud, and it was really important to hear from a national perspective the whole range of international processes that are relevant for the ocean climate nexus, from regional seas and fisheries organizations to the plastic treaty and many others in between. So thank you so much for that contribution, and I'm now pleased to pass the floor to Dr. Vladimir Ryabinin, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO and Assistant Director General of UNESCO, who will give a few addresses relating to taking ocean climate action to the next level, the imperative of collaborative ocean science. Vladimir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Morgero, dear Lisa. Indeed, this is the second already edition of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. And I would like to share with you experiences from COP27, also from how we progress, starting from COP26 in Glasgow. And I think, this year saw, I think, an increase in ocean-related activities at Convention on Climate. And for the first time, we have actually physical pavilion, which was organized by several partners led by Woods Hole Institution and also Scripps Institution for Oceanography. So, and of course, we had the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. So, I have to say that 45,000 people were registered for COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. We have to think about climate impact of such meetings. And the modality of the discussions there with the official negotiations and a lot of exhibits I think they actually call for activities like the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, because I think with the potential there for the virtual exchange after the COVID needs to be really, really used. And because of that, I'm really grateful to Miriam and the Global Ocean Forum, also to Tekla Kaiser and the whole Plymouth Marine Laboratory for once again moving forward on the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. This gives us, I would say, a democratizing element in how we can discuss many important things. You know, now to the substance, how we can progress. You know, the discussions at the COP27 were very much focused on the loss and damage mechanism, which was, I think, kind of forgotten, not really forgotten, but it was not of the high caliber and caliber attention at the previous COPs. Now countries are starting to discuss it, and this shows that we really need to move forward on adaptation and mitigation, because countries are now focusing on the damaging effects of climate change. And this is also a call for us on the ocean related solutions. This is again underlining the importance of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, which is a search engine for such solutions. What we also see now is high attention to the mitigation options that are associated with the ocean. There are discussions of various types of carbon dioxide removal. There are some already elements of discussion, and about coming back to the iron fertilization mechanism. So people are really trying to find solutions. In that sense, I think the discussions at COP27, also at the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, were very useful. I think they're setting the stage for the new search for solutions that will be increasing momentum and scope. That's what I really think is going to happen. But what I really also, I would say, observe is that on many international arenas, like COP27, like UNFCCC discussions, like the discussions on biodiversity in search of the post-2020 biodiversity framework. There is a lot of discussions focused entirely on the substance. So I feel sometimes that our approaches are a little bit symptomatic and a little bit too linear. I think we need to change that. And well, in the memory of Biljana Sissensein, and also in the memory of many important thinkers of the past, of the recent past, unfortunately. So we have to start inventing solutions that are, I would say, cross-cutting. And in that sense, once again, I would like to draw your attention to the emerging concept of sustainable ocean planning that would be based on science, that has the potential of increasing the food supply from the ocean 6 times, according to different estimates. Of course, these are basically orders of magnitude. Around 40 times increase in energy, increase of sustainable ocean economy by, I would say, 5 times. So that is all possible if first of all, the climate is conducive to that. That is a very important element. And the second thing, if we have also involvement of economy in terms of de-risking investment, in terms of using marine account or ocean accounting as a part of the country accounting, and of course, again, the same fight against land-based pollution. And we're creating conditions for this. So if we move forward to sustainable ocean planning idea that is based on best science and is illuminated by observations and also plans for sustainable ocean planning activities in exclusive economic zone of the 17 countries that are in the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy, and which the community also is able to extend that approach to the high seas, I think, and we'll be using such modern elements and elements of management of the ocean that are now in design, for example, climate smart maritime spatial planning. then I think we'll be giving contributions to climate and also to biodiversity. So I think Virtual Ocean Pavilion was very instrumental in this, and the Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development that IOC is coordinating has to converge to practical outcomes. In that sense, ocean science, ocean observation, sustainable ocean planning with benefits in the climate change domain, biodiversity domain, ocean economy domain, fighting poverty, and also contributing to peace will be a very strong contribution. And I see Virtual Ocean Pavilion as having a fantastic future because we need to engage the whole world in that. So once again, thank you, our dear partners. IOC will be with you in the next editions of VOP.
Thank you so much, Vladimir. Really important to recall the need for transformative change and creative approaches. And I think that leads very nicely to our next speaker, Ms. Sophie Masipa, Director of the One Ocean Hub Africa, who will be speaking about doing better with what we have, leveraging available financing to strengthen ocean climate action. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Prof. As you said, my name is Sophie. I'm also the CEO of Muungano ESG, so I spend my time thinking about communications, building narratives and stories around climate, ESG and sustainability, and also doing a lot of work around Ocean Hub Africa in terms of accelerating startups in Africa to protect our oceans. So the conversations around COP27 and indeed the dedicated physical ocean pavilion, along with all the sessions hosted in the second edition of the Virtual Ocean platform, has accelerated all our work. Notwithstanding the gains though, ocean climate impact, pollution, and overfishing pose significant threats to the sustainability of the oceans and the economic rents that they could provide. There can be no conversation on climate change without a conversation on ocean impact. As Sylvia Earle put it, no blue, no green. Oceans are the ones keeping our civilizations alive. They protect and absorb the climate impact, and they nurture us by supplying trade routes. So in focusing on the topic, doing better with what we have, leveraging available financing to strengthen ocean climate impact, I want to touch on a few areas that we really focus on at OHA. So as much as a plant needs fertile ground, it also needs water and the sun to sustain its growth. It's all about a sum of its parts. So too, as much as governments can provide policies, research and academic institutions the data, it is really the role of private sector to implement the change, and finance is key part of that conversation and mix. When we look at our overarching objectives at the OHA, which align and respond really to this conversation around finance, we look at a few areas, and one is really around catalyzing partnerships and collaboration, where we create an ecosystem that showcases and provides examples of possibilities and investments in the blue economy. In our own ecosystem alone, we have around 20 partners that help the work that we're doing. There's also the area around research and technical assistance, the basis really by which all our work should take place, and this also requires finance. And the third area is really around enticing more investments by de-risking opportunities and projects for investors. Because as much as we are all about show me and give me the money, investors are about show me the numbers. So we spend a lot of time with the projects that we work on to really make them ripe for investments. And then really the key area that we work on is around inspiring entrepreneurship to accelerate adoption of sustainable ocean solutions. The many startups that go through our program, we believe are the future big players in this space. We are currently on our third cohort. We take about 8 a year, and we're also a member of 1,000 ocean startups. On the investor front, we do believe that climate finance needs to be flexible, efficient, innovative, and really support projects that promote low carbon and climate resilient development. I also want to speak about another example of what we're doing when we're doing something for nothing and really around collaboration. And it's really the Ocean Innovation Africa Summit. We're hosting our next one in February from the 23rd to the 24th, same time as the Ocean Race Cape Town Stopover, which is the largest ocean event. We'll be hosting workshops, plenary discussions, a hackathon, and much more. And we invite all the ocean community to come meet, connect, share, and discover ways to provide leveraging points to address the SDGs with a specific focus on SDG 14, life below water. So I thank you all, and many of us, as we walk away from this COP27, and indeed the work that's been done around the pavilion, the virtual Pavilion, that we can all be proud that, you know, the ocean knows us by name and sees our continued efforts and encourage us all to know Mother Ocean by her name. I'm really looking forward to the next edition. And as we continue to grow this, I leave you all the ocean warriors. And as we expand our coalition of the willing through conversation, through advocacy, and through action in fighting and advocating for the ocean, with Mohit Kaushik's words, let the waves carry you where the light cannot. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Really inspiring words. And I think show us the number is quite an important one to keep in mind for all of us. So with that, we now have the pleasure of watching a video from our colleagues at the UN Food and Agriculture Organization titled Blue Transformation. We know the aquatic food is a sector that is efficient, has less impact on the environment, and emits lower carbon emissions than land-based animal production systems. And it can be at the core of climate solution. This year, on 13th November, the Virtual Ocean Pavilion had the pleasure of hosting the first live day dedicated to aquatic food during a climate conference. The day included 4 events organized by FAO, the One Ocean Hub, the European Bureau for Conservation and Development in collaboration with many other partners. And these events featured blue transformation and climate transition in the aquatic food sector and the crucial role that this sector can play in achieving the Paris Agreement goals while protecting human rights, reducing poverty, and ensuring food security. Now the short video will provide an overview of the Blue Transformation vision, a vision for resilient, equitable, and sustainable aquatic food system.
Any change begins with an idea, a vision to achieve more, contribute effectively, make a difference. Today, we can imagine a different kind of world and take the action required to achieve it. Imagine a world where fisheries and aquaculture can transform nutrition and food security to feed the world's growing population. All aquatic resources are managed sustainably. Aquaculture supports economic development, poverty reduction, and nutrition in low-income countries. Inclusive and equitable value chains bring an end to food loss and waste while ensuring all consumers can access safe aquatic food. The human rights, security and incomes of all fishers, fish farmers and fish workers are guaranteed and protected. Blue transformation is possible. A world where fisheries and aquaculture drive real change and create a meaningful difference to the lives and livelihoods of millions of people. FAO is ready to drive a blue transformation by harnessing science-based solutions, creating dialogue, and leveraging policies that can make it happen. But we cannot do it alone. We need meaningful collaboration and invite national and local governments, the private sector, and other partners to join us. Blue transformation is not only possible, blue transformation is needed if we are to nourish and sustain a growing population. But it must begin now. It must begin with us.
Thank you very much. Yet another, I think, complementary call to action from this video. We now have another contribution on accelerating green shipping through collaborative and cooperative approaches by Mr. Andrew Stephens, the Executive Director of Sustainable Shipping Initiative. Andrew, you have the floor.
Thank you, Professor Elisa, and thank you to the Global Ocean Forum and Plymouth Maritime Laboratory for inviting the Sustainable Shipping Initiative to speak. The Sustainable Shipping Initiative is a member-led NGO very much focused on sustainability and shipping across the ESG pillars, and our members are made up from stakeholders across the entire value chain. For shipping, partnerships are key to this industry, which is big and critical to the global supply chains functioning. No single stakeholder group can tackle the sustainability challenges faced by the maritime sector alone. Thus, a joined up approach is essential to achieving impact And for example, this means ensuring that all stakeholders engaged in the supply chain can connect and embrace really very much a systemic approach to securing effective and efficient change, leading to that desired positive impact on the environment, communities and people, and of course, ocean life. Important initiatives have been coming out of COP27, like the Green Shipping Challenge, which very much follows the climate declaration announced at COP26 in Glasgow last year. And where during these past 12 months, we have seen really an exponential rise in the number of green corridor projects, more than 12 now, I believe, each of which provides an opportunity to test solutions and technologies in a real trade corridor. And for example, these can address questions such as, how is the fuel transported from production site to port in a sustainable way? How is it stored and handled? How much is needed? Talking about availability as well as technical fit, of course. And what changes do we need to make to the vessels today to enable them to operate in a world where sustainable fuels power the world fleet? Very much the ocean-going fleet dominates the fleet size. These are, of course, hypothetical questions that become a lot easier when testing within the green corridor and help us answer for production of sustainable marine fuels going forwards. At the same time, we need to broaden the scope of investigation beyond fuels that are zero emission. And how do we create a fuel value chain that addresses not only the technical and sustainable aspects, but the negative environmental, social, and socio-economic externalities that we see, and where stakeholders can be and are assured of sustainability impacts being achieved and not simply being words and being described and talked about. This also requires an understanding of a value chain that acknowledges the ways in which human activity has changed, is changing, and will change the planet, and recognizes the need for climate adaptation, not just mitigation. Fuel sources that exist today may not be available in 20 to 50 years' time. And how will today's major ports look in a 2 degrees increase scenario? Will today's major ports be located similarly in the future? And what resilience measures are being invested in now, touching on that economic and financing aspect to enable this change to happen? A sustainable shipping industry is not only possible, but necessary. As we know, food, medicine, construction materials, and many other consumable goods and equipment are some of the products moved around the world by sea, where 80% of world trade is moved. It is clear that shipping will remain a critical sector in the future, but in order for this to happen, we need to future-proof it. And again, no single actor can deal with this alone. Partnerships and collaborations are vital throughout, and cross-value chain and systemic change and actions are essential. So partnerships, not only within the maritime sector, but across industries, where shipping can learn from the other sectors that already moved ahead in many of the aspects that shipping needs to challenge for its sustainability. And having the potential to be one of the drivers of this progress. Working across countries, across transport modes, learning from one another, collaborating to expand our field of vision and our understanding of what is possible are some of the aspects that we need to embrace and take forward with us to secure these goals and an environmentally safe and thriving ocean community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I think with this, we get to one of the even more exciting parts of our event, which is a discussion among the panelists. And we're getting ready also for taking questions from the audience. So at the moment, I don't see questions in the Q&A box. So please, colleagues who are joining us today, feel free to raise any points that have been discussed so far, or challenge our speakers to expand on their thinking on the points you may have in mind while we address a question across the panel. So the question for our conversation is diversity and inclusivity and the resulting wide range of perspectives that come from participatory approaches can help, but also constrain the implementation of collaborative ocean climate action. From the experience of each panelist, what are the mechanisms that have worked in promoting unity in addressing ocean climate issues? And I wonder if the panelists may take the floor in the order they spoke and provide some insights from their own experience on this question of the tensions and the opportunities coming from more inclusive processes at the ocean climate nexus.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. Based on our recent experiences in terms of the ongoing dialogue here in Tanzania, but also at the regional level, the key areas that have at least brought us on one frequency or on the same wavelength was on bringing together everyone to accept the fact that in order for us to engage the whole ocean, the whole notion of ocean climate action, we needed to do three things. We needed to first acknowledge that there was a need for the governments, for the nations, for the region to address the whole context of poverty eradication and community empowerment. That brings in the whole equation of ownership towards climate adaptation, ownership towards sustainable blue economies. But then the growing nexus in the region, this in Tanzania, when you have an increasing role of public-private partnership in addressing sustainability and climate adaptation. Another one that is very important is the momentum to continue to engage on the existing dialogue to a new level, dialogue towards mutual understanding, dialogue towards not only a multilateral obligation and commitment of, let's say, one part of the world versus the other, but at least the whole notion of multilateralism, bringing in the whole context of bilateralism between countries so that we can help each other engage the process. A quick sort of overview of what we are doing here in Tanzania, especially in Zanzibar, in trying to bring together that level of ocean climate unity. Number one, we have had to continue to talk about integrated coastal flood management for the communities towards marine spatial planning. We have had to continue to talk about the need for imparting knowledge, capacity building, and innovation. But again, the whole focus on sustainable blue economy financing and the availability of credit support, credit for those who in the recent past were deemed as, if I use this word, not eligible to receive credit, mostly the micro entrepreneurship domains of the communities, mostly fishermen and aquaculture communities. Now, the opening sort of that opportunity brings that level of cohesion in terms of the bringing forth the message towards ocean climate action. But again, that level of unity in nexus in terms of bringing the countries of the region together, at least here in the Western Indian Ocean region, the need to address sustainable market systems, sustainable green port infrastructure, processing facilities, private sector investments, and the whole notion of how do we mobilize communities by bringing on board their blue bioproduct needs, so that we bring together that bond, that partnership, that at the end of the day enables us as governments, as nations, as as the region to continue to raise momentum on the whole idea of ocean climate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that was very important points, both very practical, but also recognizing how partnership and community-led action needs very concrete commitment at the government level and very concrete action, including, as you said, access to credit and recognition of what communities are already doing. Dr. Vladimir, would you like to take this question next and tell us what's your insights into the tensions and opportunities of inclusivity and what has worked at your level of action?
Third time today. All right. So, I think it was in the Ocean Pavilion in Sharm el-Sheikh. And it was, if I'm not mistaken, 3 days ago that I announced the training course that is organized with the Leibniz Institute of Tropical Ecology, I think, and the German Agency for International Cooperation on the co-design. Because in Africa, we are now launching the Africa Decade, that means Ocean Decade roadmap. And that roadmap has been developed using the Delphi process that basically is facilitating consensus and also common vision of many stakeholders. And we were able to, I think, despite we are an intergovernmental organization, RIC of UNESCO, we were able to find consensus and also common vision on I would say functional development of oceanography in Africa that will be resulting in quite tangible outcomes for the issues that were mentioned, for example, by Dr. Jumbe. So 9 priorities were set up for that, starting from observations, also working on ocean literacy in Africa, and then resulting in ways of managing the ocean with contribution to climate change dilemma and challenges. But the core idea of that is co-design. So what I announced to the participants there was the training course on the co-design for the African Decade Roadmap. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of collective thinking. Co-design means that we have correct, meaningful combination of players at the table with equal voice, and also the I would say generators of information and also users of that information that speak in the language that is understood by the other counterparts. Scientists, they can speak the scientific language, and the users will be much more, I think, practical in that. But how we can just create activities that are so meaningful. So that is our contribution to that. And this is the first cohort of African and small island developing states participants that will be trained there. And actually, I see this as a little revolution in the field, because the Decade of Ocean Science exactly is the mechanism for us to transform the science that will be moving from the one that is based on curiosity and sense of discovery to the other one that actually preserves the sense of discovery. And there are some very interesting results in the ocean science obtained recently, but at the same time, they will be massively and very meaningfully transforming the ocean knowledge into practical solutions. And I think this is to some extent a response to that question. Co-design, common goal, meaningful priority to meaningful actions, and with the benefits already mentioned that occurring in the climate domain, in the biodiversity domain, economy domain, work against poverty domain, and also very important for me, peace.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response, and very much I would like to support, I think, not only from the One Ocean Hub, but the many other colleagues across ocean research in the marine and social sciences, and also very different knowledge systems beyond academia. I think they're all very keen to support and engage in and around the UN Decade for Ocean Science in learning how we can better co-design and co-produce ocean knowledge moving forward. And I think it was really interesting to hear the example of, for instance, adopting the Delphi process, because of course, many researchers have out there tested and piloted different approaches to co-design, and we really need to share these practices and see which work at different scales of action. So a lot more exchanges on this, hopefully in the context of the UN Decade, that many of us wish to contribute and learn from one another. So Sophie, would you like to respond next and share with us your insights into the tensions and the opportunities of inclusiveness and what has worked in your context?
Definitely, thanks, Prof. I think to run through again what we believe has worked is, as I said, from the work that we do, we currently have over 20 partners, and that's really a combination of governments. We've got the support of the French embassy here, and then there's also the NPOs, WWF. There's also businesses, whether we're looking at VCs or the growing blue funds that are in the space. And also being a member of that 1000 Ocean Startup which is really a global coalition around building this startup ecosystem around the world. And I think that's been a really, really important program in kind of merging and bringing together all the voices that are working in that startup ecosystem. That's really important. And I think then the next level, I would say, on a really practical level, when we look at the accelerator program itself, as I said, we're in the third cohort of our accelerator program. One of the key areas we do look at is the partnership in bringing together mentors to the program who help support the businesses, whether we bring in diverse voices, funders and investors, because those are important in assisting the startups in understanding the investment landscape, in understanding how funders look for projects, what they look for in those projects, as well as helping them get their projects investor ripe. We also have legal mentors in that process, marketing and communications resources. So I actually started off before I joined the board of Ocean Hub Africa as one of the mentors. I was mentoring one of the companies that were in the cohort last year. And because one of the big things that they needed was marketing and communications and understanding the role of that as they build their startup. So that type of combination that we've brought through to the table in terms of that program really works fantastic, as it gives and empowers the startups that are in the program. And then lastly is really around the Ocean Innovation Africa, our summit. As I said, it's on again next year in February. And there, in how we structure the program, combined, a combination around expert panels, bringing both global voices and continental voices across different markets. And the second level is really around the B2B programs, allow us to understand the landscape better, understand kind of anything from research, government policies, and then the investor landscape as well. And then in running that hackathon, obviously from a startup point and helping really getting the young voices and building this pipeline of startups across the continent. So yeah, I think it's been a really great program for us and great learning in what we need to improve on. And each year we just get better, and we're seeing success where some of our startups are getting funding. Brave Oil, who's also, they were attending the show, they're at COP27 physically. One of our startups, we've got about 3 startups on the ground attending the session. So that's another thing we do, is in exposing the startups in the program to global events such as COP.
No, that's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sophie. And I think emphasizing mentoring, mutual learning, ideally also across generation and younger voices, and that support for innovation to travel across scales and allow an even broader range of partners to learn from that is very much essential, and something that we've been also trying to contribute to. So Andrew, would you like to take the question next? And then I see that Vladimir has raised his hand.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Building on Vladimir and Sophie's points, I think that whole desire and effort to make sure we connect, not only, as I described it, SSI's cross-value chain focus on the stakeholders, whether they're cargo owners, charterers, ship operators, or banks involved in shipping's sustainability challenge. It's important to bring in the diverse voices of those that don't normally connect to each other. So we have experience of bringing together stakeholders that perhaps had not normally, and this was a comments made by some, been brought together in the same forum to discuss perhaps difficult subjects. because you tend to, like most situations, work in silos. So, you know, IGOs may work on an issue from their perspective and have their own collaborations and come up with positions and views, and it becomes sort of challenging to the opposing elements in that universe. But we've made an effort to bring different stakeholders. In the case of our biofuels work, for example, on decarbonizing shipping, we dared to explore biofuels as one of the alternative fuels that others were not picking up on. And we organized workshops, at least two, in person, where we brought together industry stakeholders, academia, IGOs, NGOs, etc. And that was an environment where some had commented that they had not really worked together before. And again, they were all of different backgrounds, technical, commercial, environmental, etc., and at different ages and genders. And this also we see in some of our work on seafarers' rights that we recently held a roundtable event where we brought the universe, so the 360 degrees of those engaged in seafarers' rights, whether they were recruitment agencies, they were charterers, they were banks, they were seafarers as well, and listening then, of course, to seafarers in that cohort of discussions and 360 coverage enables those voices to come to the fore and evidence to be shared and discussed of what is substance really over form. And I think shipping has been an industry very much that is described what it's going to be doing, but you know, it's important to see the impact and the actions through evidence. And those diverse, being geographical contributions or gender contributions, age differences, as been mentioned already, has really helped progress and propel those discussions and help get through the issues that actually need to be addressed with with which priority as well. So we've really relished those, benefited from those, and we see further actions where it'll be essential, as also been touched on, that people and communities in particular that are impacted by shipping need to be engaged in consulting and joining again together in the endeavors of sustainable shipping. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, the point about bringing to the table people that don't usually talk to one another, that's key. And that's where the magic happens after some challenges.
Absolutely.
Hey, I think we Vladimir, you asked for the floor, so I'm happy to pass the time back to you.
Thank you very much, Elisa. And you know that I asked for the floor because there was a question that was referring to my name. This is a question by Tony McDonald, and you know I'm going to read it if you allow me. And then the question reads as follows. Dr. Rybinin mentioned the need for planning for sustainable ocean economies. What's new about this planning paradigm, and how can we build capacity and skills needed at the local and regional level to develop and implement these plans? So indeed, I think what is happening now is reconsideration of how we can work in the ocean. And very much this was stimulated by the discussions that took place under the auspices of the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy. That panel was established, I think 2018, 2017 perhaps, by the Prime Minister of Norway, Erna Solberg. And it was co-chaired by her and also the president of Palau. That were kind of developed countries, smaller developing states combined. The idea was to review what is happening with ocean economies. And but you know, I think despite the name was sustainable ocean economy, the main idea was, of course, what we can do with the ocean beyond also the economies. But that was really kind of very promising name to discuss the monetary element of that. So in the result of that thinking process, these 17 heads of state or government were actually supported by around 100 different experts in different fields, and this was a huge knowledge base. Around 20 papers were published on that, on various aspects of the work in the ocean, including, for example, on crimes and fisheries, on ethics in relation to the ocean, on perspectives of sustainable ocean economy, deep sea bed mining, and things like this. So that created a sum of knowledge, and we are capitalizing on this now, and we are trying to create a coalition by which there will be influx of money into sustainable ocean economy business, and the focus is here on sustainable. It is not yet there, and again, I spoke in Sharm el-Sheikh on the current situation in the blue economy, as it was called at that meeting. So, and we have actually the current GDP of the world of the order of $100 trillion per year, and around 2-3 trillion US dollars per year is the size of the ocean economy, has the potential of growing to 15,000. But actually, I have to say that we are starting a little bit top down, and we know what needs to be done at the global level, at the level of countries. But the question is about local and regional level. And I have to say that this is not yet, we don't have any fully developed approaches, because maritime special planning is also kind of large scale now. There is transboundary maritime special planning. How to downscale to the local or regional level remains a big issue. But I truly believe that if we move forward on two types of sciences, the ocean science that is also contributing to ocean economy, and the climate science that is also now more and more reviewing downscaling and regional climate predictions. And so we will be able to create a knowledge and database, and also of various products that will be enabling ocean economy that will be sustainable at the regional level and progressively at the local level. But the whole thing requires basically scaling up. Ocean economy and the SDG 14 is by far the least funded SDG. It has huge potential, and the lack of financial development in this area actually hampers implementation of the whole 2030 agenda. All SDGs are suffering because of that. So we're trying to show this. We haven't yet achieved the full scale success in that, but the fact that we have now UN Ocean conferences, that we have now the third maritime special planning conference next week in Barcelona, I think we are changing the tide, turning the tide. But we need really to have virtual ocean pavilions. We have to really explain to the world the perspectives there. They're fantastic, but we are only at the start of that process. It's a very good question, because it is about the local and regional level. And it's a very tough one at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. And indeed, that's where collaboration is really key, and for all of us to connect our efforts and see how we can construct those partnerships, nourish them, and share the knowledge for them to be built into different initiatives, including the one you've been referring to. So there's still opportunities for our colleagues on the call to ask questions to the panel. In the meantime, maybe I'll share a question of my own for the panelists to react if they wish. I think one thing that was very interesting in our own work in the One Ocean Hub, from the local level to the international, has been how engaging with ocean cultures, and including intangible cultural connections to the ocean, to the seabed, has really allowed us to understand who was being left out from decisions, and to find more innovative ways to integrate different knowledge systems and perspectives and innovation in processes related to sustainable ocean management, even to the point of getting to legal recognition of participatory rights as a consequence of the legal recognition of the cultural rights related to the ocean, of small-scale fishers, indigenous peoples, traditional healers, but also women and children. And I think what's been really interesting is also that just before COP27, the UN Special Rapporteur on Climate Change and Human Rights, who very much focused on loss and damage, that, as Vladimir said, has raised in profile at this climate COP, has really called attention not only to the loss and damage of ocean spaces and ocean ecosystems, as part of the impacts of climate change, but also the potential loss of ocean cultures and ocean livelihoods. So really also understanding how, from an international human rights perspective, all these human connections to the ocean are interconnected. And in some of the events we have organized at the COP this year, we have also been able to share some of our art-based approaches as a way in which we can engage with different knowledge systems in a way that is not just rational, but very much opening up our imagination, our sense of wonder, nurturing respect and an eagerness to learn from other knowledge systems, and then finding ways to imagine more creatively ways forward. And so I'm just curious if any of the panelists wish to reflect on the role of culture, or maybe the need for more attention to culture as a dimension of the work that they are engaging with, and that ongoing reflection about partnerships and inclusivity. I don't know if anyone wishes to respond to this prompt. Vladimir, please go ahead, and then we'll give a bit more time to the other colleagues.
Thank you. Actually, Elisa, you know, I probably would need more time too, but you know, as someone had to start. You know, first of all, I would like to refer to the UNESCO Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage, the Convention of 2001. So that convention and the community behind it is a recognized community in the work on the ocean decade. So this community is equally one that is involved in the maritime special planning. If people know here the maritime special planning game, then those objects are basically part of the planning, because their protection is critical. This is the first element, which is, I think, developing very fast. The second thing is that indeed we in the decade try to not only focus on, let me call it, exact or natural sciences or just social and human sciences. For the first time, we are creating a totally new type of science that is focused on equity, on ethics, also on culture, and also involving very much, I think, emotions. One of the 7 outcomes of the ocean that we would like to see by the end of the decade is engaging and inspiring ocean. And because of that, and also one of the 10 challenges is called improving our relations, human relations with the ocean, to much more harmonic relations. And because of that, for example, in the United Nations Ocean Conference in Lisbon, there was a concert, and also there'll be more concert on this. You know, that art is part of our message to the world, and this message is indeed very much focused on let's say, emotional elements. And one of the decade programs is called A Decade of Ocean Empathy. That is a program that resonates with me the strongest. Then we have also a decade of that relates to the previous question, the decade empowering women in ocean sciences, the early career ocean professionals, and also already for many years, RUC has been trying to develop, for example, competitions of school students in the art. So I think this is basically not something new, but we are working on that very intensively, fully recognizing the potential that not only have to go to the brain, they also need to go to the heart. So that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, it's great to hear. And I guess the challenge is then how that becomes more mainstream, and different colleagues maybe who have worked in different ways come to embrace and find new ways to connect to that in their own work. Would any of the other panelists like to react on this theme? Feel free to just switch on your mic and your camera if you like.
Hi, Lisa. Yes, I think you say who's left out. I think it's I touched on the seafarers in the roundtable consultations that we just run on seafarers' rights, and at least 2 of the seafarers that we engaged with were women who had joined the industry and spoke fairly and candidly about their experiences. And I think that reaching out is quite absent in many cases, and we see it with the discussions and the exposures to the impacts of different segments of the shipping industry, which are calling in ports, and ports being located close to cities, towns, environment, residential areas, the use of ship-led power whilst in port, and the pollution impacting air quality, etc. And of course, we see much more coverage with the impacts of road transport, for example, in cities, than we do from shipping, and it's a serious issue for shipping to tackle. So the actions by those stakeholders that are, of course, the bridge to the communities in the ports, being the port players and actors themselves, is essential here to engage not only in careers in shipping, but contributing to the social well-being of and health of the communities is essential. So listening to those voices within the local communities is essential. So I think there are parts of communities that have strong voices, representation, and understand, and there are other parts of communities which also feel left out and ignored from most issues, whether that's road transport, and then particularly so if it comes to the shipping, because shipping is very much out of sight and out of mind, and giving the opportunities to these communities, I think, is essential for shipping and connecting with oceans, impacts, etc., for its betterment. But seafarers has been our most recent exposure, and we look forward to, through our membership, engaging on the impacts further in terms of communities, which is one of the key vision areas in our roadmap.
No, thank you so much. It sounds fascinating. I wish I had been there. And I think also our capacity to listen and learn and then share that knowledge with others is really crucial to then really make the most of those opportunities to learn from others who usually don't have that opportunity to.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if you're a stakeholder, be it a charterer or a ship owner, or let's say a P&I club insurer, which has the risks of all the seafarers within the supply chain, it's not many occasions that such a gathering, again, of those that don't normally meet, the point I made earlier on biofuels, they don't normally come together, but the value of sharing and listening and respecting each other's voices and inputs is tremendous.
And of course, the more one does that, the more one learns how important it is. Sophie, I see you have switched on your video. Would you like to come in?
Yeah, I think for us practically would probably be the work we do in the consulting area. So we have a process in our roadmap that really focuses on this value chain mapping in terms of coastal community empowerment planning. So when we look at whether it's a government, the works we're doing with government is really assisting in how they map the impact on the work they're doing around the Blue Economy Roadmap and its impact on those coastal communities, whether it's small fishers or fisheries and that. And I think the second level would then be the work around the impact reporting when we look at the ESG process and kind of do that analysis around the social element. So that becomes a big part of the work. And then the last one, again, in the Ocean Innovation Africa is really that piece around the hackathon, because that really allows us to tap into innovative ways to get those solutions around culture.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Dr. Aboud, just double checking that you would or would not like to come in on this question. I just don't want to leave you out, even if you didn't follow the order.
No, I mean, I'm pretty much enjoying the discussion here. It's what we've been pretty much doing here in Tanzania. For example, here in Zanzibar, our government has already invested about, over $2 million to support the community oriented programs. For example, we have now invested in a manufacturing and supply and a soft loan credit system to the communities, in about 1,000 boats for fisher communities and boats for women seaweed farmers here in Zanzibar. We've also invested in practicing and supplying on a soft loan basis the ropes and clippers for seaweed cultivation. We have already invested in developing, establishing mariculture pens for the sea cucumber farmers, most of whom are women. Also, the mud crab farmers, and even in the whole context of fish pond farming. We in the island, sort of a entity, we are now actually adopting towards fresh fish farming systems, and these are all part of the programs that are very much intended to be invested heavily into the community sort of oriented programs. And that brings us into that question of ownership. When you have won over the support of the communities, when you have sort of won their hearts in terms of the national discourse or the regional dialogue dynamics direction towards climate adaptation, towards ocean climate action. And I think these are the things that the communities want. They want to feel that they are part of the equation. They don't want to be told what to do if you can't really do anything much about them. And so these kinds of initiatives, these kind of investments, this kind of empowerment, and that are pretty much coming from the government are key towards having us go towards that direction in unity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that aspect of recognizing the value, and with that, the underlying culture, and that leads nicely back to the video that our FAO colleague shared on the importance of blue food systems and how culture, health, and participation are really all linked to that area. So with that, I think we are ready to move to another contribution from our colleague, Ms. Tekla Kaiser, Deputy Head of the International Office at Plymouth Marine Laboratory, who will share her perspective on democratizing the COP, the role of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion at COP27. We're very eager to hear about the progress made by this great initiative.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you, Vladimir, for your kind words about the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. So yes, democratizing the COP, the role of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion at COP27. So as the ocean concerns everyone, it only seems right that there is a capability of engaging and reaching those who cannot attend COP27 in person, and also the main reason for why the Virtual Ocean Pavilion was created back in 2021 for COP26, and this year for COP27, ensuring we're leaving no one behind, and also that we're creating a long-lasting resource for all. Next slide, please. The pavilion is dedicated to raising the visibility in the ocean in the climate negotiations, and to showcasing why the ocean matters to all life on our planet. It's a communication platform for connecting virtual and in-person participants of the summit from various parts of the world, and for promoting increased ambition, finance, unity, and action in accordance with COP27 priorities. The virtual approach also makes it climate friendly, reducing the carbon footprint. And I'm pleased to report that the COP27 Pavilion had over 2,000 registrations with, and this is very important, delegates from 115 countries, making it a true global initiative. It has been open to everyone, for everyone to visit, and free to register since its opening during the Africa Climate Week in August, and it will be accessible until the 17th of December this year. It was co-organized by the Global Ocean Forum, Plymouth Marine Laboratory, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, One Ocean Hub, and the Ocean and Climate Platform, in collaboration with many other partners from across the globe. The diversity of these organizers and the collaborating partners ensured a wide range of perspectives on ocean and climate issues, and provided opportunities for forging cross-sectoral cooperation and collaboration on ocean climate action at the national, regional and global levels. Next slide, please. The pavilion featured live and on-demand events with interventions from high-level speakers, UN representatives, ocean and climate experts and practitioners, as well as philanthropists. The pavilion's live sessions focused on addressing finance, science, youth and future generations, aquatic foods, biodiversity and ocean-based adaptation and mitigation. This followed live events during the Africa Climate Week, which also included an adaptation and resilience practices and tools clinic. Miriam Belgos of the Global Ocean Forum and the overall coordinator of this Virtual Ocean Pavilion highlighted to me how in one of the live events, the participants mentioned, "Show me once or tell me 1,000 times." And this statement supports the effectiveness of the live sessions by sharing information visually and so facilitating the messaging. Next slide, please. Visitors to the pavilion were able to interact with experts through 29 ocean exhibit booths, showcasing national and international organizations and initiatives on ocean and climate, including booths on major ocean-related events such as the UN Ocean Conference, the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, the French Ocean Exhibition, as well as the IMO World Maritime Day. There were booths of partnerships and alliances such as the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network, the GOAON, the OA Alliance, the International Partnership on MPAs, biodiversity and climate change. There were global and regional or local actors such as booths of IOC UNESCO and the UN Ocean Decade, the FAO, the Partnerships in Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia, also known as PEMSE, and Fiji. And of course, I cannot ignore my own organization, Plymouth Marine Laboratory, which was also one of the exhibitors. Each booth contained resources, including videos and documents, with the option to keep these on file as a resource by the attendees. Through a treasure trove, visitors were able to access a collection of art, videos, climate stories, and publications from around the world to increase their knowledge, commitment, and action on the ocean climate nexus. A scavenger hunt was also available to explore the pavilion in a playful and educational way. Next slide, please. To help facilitate access to the ocean events at and around the COP27 and to help promote the ocean and climate action there, Plymouth Marine Laboratory and the Global Ocean Forum also developed the COP27 Ocean Events Tracker, collecting information on the ocean-related events at the COP27 and summarizing these into a single overview document accessible through the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. We worked with the One Ocean Flotilla and the Ocean and Climate Platform for input into this tracker. This has resulted in a very useful overview, and so providing access to nearly 200 ocean events held throughout COP27. Next slide, please. Now, all these resources from the pavilion will remain accessible after it closes, and that will be through the Roadmap to Oceans and Climate Action, the ROCA Initiative website. And I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tekla. And that brings us to the opportunity to watch another video, which our colleagues, Blue Ventures, have offered on the 10th November during a live event. It was co-organized with us at the One Ocean Hub, focused on Indigenous peoples, traditional knowledge, and ocean climate action for the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. And the panel practiced the art of listening through the stories and experiences of traditional and indigenous knowledge holders from Namibia, Madagascar, Ghana, and South Africa. And we now have the privilege of watching the video, how VESO traditional knowledge is incorporated in marine resource management in Madagascar by the Symphorian Nihala Maniri SOA, thanks to Blue Ventures. So hopefully we can share the video now.
I grew up in coastal village in the southwest Madagascar. I'm part of VESO tribe. The word VESO means to paddle. So our tribe, the Vansa us and our close relationship with the ocean. VESO is also a word used to call people who can dive, fish, glean, and can make and sail boats. We fish, dive, and glean to make a living. It's what we think about when we first wake up, and it's what we dream about when we go to sleep. My father was a big fisherman in our village. He was well known for his very good fishing skills and his knowledge of the ocean. He always caught a lot when he went out fishing because he always knew where to find a school of fish depending on the weather. He could tell what species was underwater even it was far away from him. Sea turtles are very important in this culture. My father lived by the Vesu traditions, using only certain type of boat when going out to harpoon a turtle, and only going so on special occasions. He passed away when I was 9 years old, so I learned to fish from my older half-brother to become a Vesu, to be able to support my family when I was still trying to get through school. I also learned about all the fish species and different sea creatures using a book from the dive expedition centers in our village. Now I'm working for the Marine Conservation Organization Blue Ventures as outreach media officer. I create facilitation tools for our community, such as film, music video, radio show, and presentation to teach them about how to manage our marine conservation in a sustainable way. This culture traditionally contribute to ocean protection and resource management. Fishers here used to have area where they all go to make offering to the ancestors, dropping queens to clean the area, and asking the ancestor to make the area productive, so the fish all disappears to where they hold the fish. These were traditional no-take zone protected by belief, common respect for the ocean and the ancestors. Certain types of shark were also protected by story of their importance to these people, and like I mentioned before, the sea turtle is very important in Vesu culture and was protected. However, as the number of fish has decreased, life of these people has got harder. People have begun to break these taboos either accidentally or deliberately. People have realized that nothing immediately bad has happened to them and the traditional have eroded. Part of my role at Blue Ventures is to help teach the community why things like no-take zone are still important. On regional scale, we have a locally managed marine area called Viljek. The area includes mangrove reserves, no-take zones on coral reef and partially fisheries closures, mainly for octopus. It is run by a community-led association, and rules about management and resource use are defined by a locally developed a set of law called EDINA, which is now legally blending. The protected area is recognized by the Malagasy government but managed by Blue Ventures and the Committee Association. This means knowledge of the Vesu people directly contributes to the management of the locally managed marine area. Having the Community Association managing Viljek empower the local communities in ocean governance. However, barriers for traditional knowledge do appear when local law contend with national and international law. For example, the locally made DINA law were originally informed by community taboos. For example, no-take zone were located where traditional taboo area were, and DINA for turtle and shark they were caught sustainably and according to local tradition. But the local taboos often are competing with top-down ideas from resource management, which might not be in line with traditions. We need to be careful that local marine management law respect the traditional way, but also support sustainability and conservation goals. I think this will help get support from the community, making the project more sustainable in the future. To bridge the gap between traditional knowledge and climate and ocean action, it's very important for projects to have community members at the forefront and empower them with knowledge to make decisions. For example, we have a local science team trained by Blue Volunteers to do ecological monitoring in protected area. We also train fishers in basic marine science, mapping and monitoring so they understand the change happening and what this might mean for their livelihoods. We have found film, radio, and music are very good way to engage people in the conversation about conservation and the way for community members to share their voice. For example, some members of the community came to me as they wanted to record a song and release a music video about the importance of mangroves, so I can help them with that project. Recently, we have also been using participatory video where youth have been interviewing elders about the marine ecosystem and how it has changed and making short films. This is working well as the youth are engaging and learning from the elders, ensure the tradition knowledge is not lost.
Well, it's always incredible to hear those voices, even if they can be with us just now in this event. And we need to keep thinking about ways in which we can learn from voices across scales. So we're drawing towards the close of this event, and I have the pleasure of inviting to speak Mr. Richard Delaney, Center for Coastal Studies and Global Ocean Forum, to close our event.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you for an excellent panel. I was just so impressed with the substance and relevance of all of the speakers. It's just an example of many of these panels that have been on the Virtual Ocean Pavilion 2022. I do want to, before I close the official closing, I do want to do a big shout out to Miriam Belgos and to Tekla Kaiser and the entire planning team. Tekla showed us, some of the features. You guys have looked at them. It's wonderful. Well, it's a wonderful platform, but there's an awful lot of work that goes into it. And I know that team met meeting after meeting for months to make it happen. So thank you all for that great effort. And I just would say one of the little taglines on the Virtual Ocean Pavilion says, it is to connecting all to our incredible blue planet. And I'd suggest that's really the essence of this Virtual Ocean Pavilion. It's the best way to think about it. All of us are connected inextricably to the ocean. We all benefit from its ecosystem services, and yet many of us are treating the ocean in ways we live and act in ways that treats the ocean and literally threatens the health of the ocean. So we cannot let our guard down. We have to continue our collective work. And I'm going to go right to my big announcement right now, which is that we are very excited and pleased to announce that there will be a VOP 2023. It will be focused, of course, on COP28 in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And it will be really exciting. And it just speaks to the fact that so many people have given us great feedback about the value, both of VOP in 2021, but this one. So the other part of the announcement is, I know I just said all those volunteers spent so much time. If any of them are on the call, please don't panic. We're not going to ask you to start working hard again right away the day after this. We do have and will be advertising for and retaining a person who will fill the Professor Biljana Sisson-Sain Fellowship. This is in memory of her work with grad students and others. And we are fortunate to have a lot of people, a number of people donate in her name. So we will retain Biljana Sisson-Sain Fellow, and that person will be, one of the tasks of that person will be to help make VOP 2023 a reality. So in the meantime, just to we will migrate all of the information, the videos, the panels, the resources, the documents, the reports over to the ROCA website. That's the Roadmap for Ocean and Climate Action. So we don't lose any of this. And as Turkles said, it will still be able to be accessible right through December 18th on this site, but we won't lose any of the great work and the great panels like the one we just had. So I'm not going to go long, and we're running right up against the end here, but I will herefore officially, as chair of the Global Ocean Forum Board of Directors, declare the Virtual Ocean Pavilion 2022 a huge success and now officially closed. So thank you all, and I'll return it back to you, Professor.
Thank you so much. It is really exciting to hear those announcements, and I think we're all standing ready to help with the preparations. And maybe while we might need to take a breather after a very intense 2 weeks of the COP, and of course we still have the Biodiversity Summit ahead of us before the end of the year. It is really important for us today to reflect on what we have achieved in democratizing access to international negotiations on climate, on biodiversity, and on the oceans, and also what remains to be done. And we have heard how many of the colleagues on the call are engaging in different efforts to make ocean science accessible, co-designed and co-developed, and that's an essential precursor and needs to happen actually at the same time as we find more and more innovative ways for the voices that haven't yet heard or haven't yet been listened to be more present and influential across scales. And maybe just to conclude with a word of about the challenge that we have put on our own shoulders, and recall that almost all UN Special Rapporteurs on Human Rights issued a very strong statement before COP27 began about the many concerns related to genuine access for all relevant human rights holders to the climate negotiations. And I think for all those ocean-dependent human rights holders, maybe we're facing even more challenges because we're still making our way into the climate conversations. And at the same time, I think the research that ourselves at the One Ocean Hub, but also together with colleagues at, say, the FAO and Blue Ventures and many others, we're also trying to understand how engaging with human rights and looking at the bar the human rights sets is one of the ways, but not the only way, of course, to continue to contribute to democratize these processes of knowledge production, of decisions, and ultimately partnership building. So on that note of a daunting but possible challenge for all of us to continue to collaborate on, I'll thank you all for sharing those experiences today and reflections, and look forward to seeing you again very soon and continue to work together closely and even more broadly in taking on these challenges. Thank you all so much. And Miriam, a particular vote of thanks to you for having brought us all together. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.